So my name is Jeff Newman. I head up all staffing on the West Coast for Mobiquity. We're not quite an Accenture. We're not quite a Microsoft in the sense we're not as much consulting. We're not as much a product company. Company will come to us, ask, how do we get involved in this whole mobile revolution? Brick and mortars, Weight Watchers is one of our big clients. They came to us about 2 years ago and said, we know we should be involved in this, what do we do? So we didn't just build the application, we built everything around the application. Why you need a mobile app, how to use it, how to work with it. That's essentially what Mobiquity is about. And I head up all staffing, a little bit of this, a little bit of HR, like everybody else. If my boss asks me to do it, I take care of it, even if it isn't in the job description. So, I have been in staffing for 16 years. I started on the agency side doing Wall Street recruiting. I did Wall Street recruiting for more years than I'd like to admit, but I am really a long-haired hippie communist at heart, and it never really sat with my soul. I don't think I have to tell anybody who works for a living that sometimes you have to do things that don't make you happy because they're your job, and you do it to do the parts you enjoy. And I still absolutely love recruiting. I love staffing. I love this business. My favorite thing about it is meeting new people, talking to different people, and the absolute pleasure I get in helping someone find an opportunity that isn't a job, but is truly a life-changing opportunity. Mobiquity is not your average startup. We're 2 years old. We have over 200 people already, and we do tend to have a lot of fun while doing it. That's my boss and I at our last HR get-together in Boston. I think everyone should be this happy at their job. I have definitely drunk the Kool-Aid. I love it here, and I like to help people find that same pleasure that they get in their job. And I'm hoping some of the things that I'll talk about today will give you that extra little plus you can to get your next opportunity, because you should never take a job. You should only take opportunities. It's one of my standard lines. Nobody likes working, but you can love your job. We'd all rather be on a beach drinking a margarita. I know I would. But it doesn't mean you can't love your job. So, it's not an easy job to do staffing. We meet hundreds and hundreds and thousands of applicants over the course of a year, and you tend to fall into a salesman role. Now, I've been corporate, I've been agency, and I know how recruiters are seen in our industry, how IT people see recruiters, how everybody sees recruiters. It's Gil from The Simpsons. We're never getting there, we're never doing it. Raise your hand if you thought you were really close to an opportunity and the recruiter never, ever called you back. You know, I've used recruiters to look for recruiting jobs. And I've been there, and they know I know what they're doing, and they still don't do what they're supposed to do. You ever look at, I know a lot of people in here are coders. You ever look at somebody else's code and go, man, that's terrible code, and it makes you frustrated because as a professional, you know that it's not great? That's how I feel when I see things like this happening. And there's ways we can get around it. There's ways that you need to understand about recruiters. We have Microsoft and we have Apple. But they're both computers, right? They're both personal computers. So we have agency recruiters and we have corporate recruiters. So how do we tell the difference? How do you know? An agency recruiter has multiple openings for you, and they're going to try to get you into every single one of them. A corporate recruiter has usually one role, maybe two, that they're trying to get you into. The agency recruiter is going to sell herself or himself on why they should be representing you. to all these different clients, why they have connections that you don't have, why they have contacts that you won't know about. The HR recruiter is going to pitch her company, pitch his company, and say, this is why you want to come work for Mobiquity. Now, I am never going to stand here and I write an online blog about recruiting and staffing and job hunting, and my answer to most things is always the same. Always be honest about your skill set, about what you do, about what you're looking for, about your passion, about everything. Because I, as a recruiter, can talk to you all day about the difference between Java, C++, and embedded C. We could have an awesome discussion on why a relational database is better than a NoSQL database or the other way around. But I don't really know what I'm talking about. I can talk it, I don't walk it. You showed me 2 lines of code, I couldn't tell you what the difference is between them. But I can tell if you are telling me the difference. Not always, I'm certainly not perfect. But my job is to look at you in the eyes and figure out if you're BSing me about what you really do. Now, engineers, which I have an engineering background as well, we tend to be very linear thinkers. A, B, C, D in a line. When you're on a job interview, you can never answer linearly. You have to break out of the zone. So I ask you, have you done any applications for the new iOS operating system? Anything on that? And you go, no, I haven't. Because you didn't. But the answer needs to be, no, I haven't. But I've actually researched it, and I started working a little bit on my own, but I've built 22 applications for iOS 4, 5, and 6. And they're all, you can see my work on GitHub. It's never, ever a yes or no answer. It is not a binary, an interview is not a binary equation. An interview, especially with a recruiter, is about getting past that. I want to see the passion, and I want to see that you've done the work. But you can't just give us yes or no's on any interview, because none of us know what we're really talking about. So again, agency recruiter, they're going to represent you at multiple roles. A corporate recruiter wants you for one specific role that they know about in their firm. You own the agency recruiter. Never let an agency recruiter take the upper hand in the relationship. What do I mean by the upper hand? Give you a hard time about interviewing for a job you don't want. Send you on a job where they haven't sent you the job description. Any of those things, you have to control it, because you are the person with the talent. They have a talent, I have a talent, we all have a talent. My talent isn't coding, my talent isn't project management or product management or being a business analyst. My talent is to evaluate talent. But when you're dealing with an agency recruiter, they want to represent your talent, but you own them. They need you a lot more than you need them. And obviously, I'm a big believer in not being a jerk. You can't be a jerk, but you can't also be taken advantage of by an agency recruiter. And I got to tell you, I really feel for my peers on the agency side, because I lived that life for a long time. And we've all had no callbacks. We all know how frustrating it is when they browbeat you and force you into something, or you go on the job and find it has nothing to do with what the recruiter told you it was. Or even worse, go through all the interviews and then you get an offer that's $20,000 less than what you were making. Agency recruiters are always one day away from being fired. Now, if any of us here handed in a bad project, a bad code with bugs, chances are you'll be given another chance. You're not going to get fired the next day. Agency recruiters, and you have to feel that in what they do, because a lot of what they do and a lot of what I did in the beginnings of my career, it's not morally right, it's not ethically right. But imagine you're 24 and 2 paychecks away from being kicked out of your apartment. I always look at it, it's not the most appropriate example, but a young person who poses for inappropriate pictures when they're 21 because they had to pay for college, and then it suddenly comes back when they're 30. You were young, you needed the money, you know? It's just how it rolls. So I'm not saying that you have to follow what they say, do what they do. I ask you to be careful of it, but understand where they're coming from. They, you know, I know how recruiters are viewed, you know. Pedophile, recruiter, car salesman. It's how the world sees us. I'm not naive. I like to think that I'm different. I'm upfront. I'm no bullshit. I just use the word shit in in a thing. I'm not gonna play a game. I like to think of my style as black licorice. Some people love black licorice. Some people hate it, but no one's like, I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on black licorice. Everybody has an opinion on black licorice. It's how it is. Find recruiters that you like to work with. The key is open, honest communication on both sides to establish the nature of the relationship. A good recruiter will answer all your questions, and something that I've done in my career that still blows people away, Mobiquity makes you an offer $100,000, and you come to me and say, I gotta tell you, Google just made me an offer for $125,000 and their benefits are better. Now, a good recruiter is going to say, I insist that you take the Google opportunity. Now, Mobiquity is offering you more because you're going to have more of a growth path because we're young enough that there's more places to go. In Google, you're probably going to be doing the same role for a while. But I can't meet the money. I can't beat the options you're going to get. My advice as your recruiter, as your career advisor, is to take the Google offer. That's how you know you're being treated well. And a recruiter who does that, you're going to go back to her. You're going to go back to him when you're looking again. Because we're not our parents' generation. They stayed, my dad was an insurance executive at the same company for 38 years, and then he retired. I've had 7 jobs, I think 6 jobs, and I'm 38. Our lives are different. So, questions on dealing with the agency recruiter? Anything I can answer? Any problem that you've encountered you'd like to know? Yes, please.
So I've had many agency recruiters. They will send me a list, sometimes periodically, of recs that they have available. And they're all cookie cutter, like N number of years with this or whatever. I don't get what company is it for and what product are they building, or any real information that I use to decide whether or not I'm interested in the position.
Okay, so the way you handle that is you call the recruiter. And your first question is, are you dealing with the hiring manager or with human resources? If the answer is human resources, you have a lot of your information there. HR, which I'm part of, we don't know what we're doing either. So they didn't give the recruiter, the agency, the right amount of money. If they're dealing with the hiring manager, you say, okay, this is what I'd like. A lot of what you sent me intrigues me, but I'm very happy where I am. In order for me to move on, if you can answer X, Y, and Z, and I don't want anything confidential, it can be general. I don't want to, don't push, but I need to know this, this, or this before I know if I'm interested. If they truly have the connections, which is what an agency recruiter is best for, that no one here can do, will often have connections into companies that you never even would have thought of. Like the head of quality assurance at Moody's was a candidate of mine 15 years ago. And every so often I'll get when I was on the agency side, I would get a rock star QA candidate cross my desk. And I would call her and I'd say, Agnes, I don't know if you're hiring or not, this person just crossed my desk. Is this someone that would intrigue you? And I never send a resume without asking the candidate first. If an agency sends your resume and you don't know about it, you have to fire them. It's unacceptable behavior. You are Harrison Ford and I'm your agent. You have the talent. I just happen to know the guys who make the movies. That's the relationship. Does that answer the question? I think, yeah. I get a little long-winded, forgive me.
Can you repeat that part about the first question you asked is, like, hiring manager, human resources? What does that mean?
So, if someone's dealing with someone like me in HR, I am a gatekeeper. My job is to prevent applicants who are, for one reason or not, unqualified, whatever that unqualified, they don't have the technical skills, they're not a culture fit, whatever it is, from talking to my hiring managers. How many people in the room have done hiring here? Okay. When you hire, it's half an hour out of what your real job is. Your job isn't to hire people. Your job is whatever you're coding, whatever you're managing, whatever it is. So if I'm asking you to take an hour of your time, even though this person may end up on your team, that's a significant commitment. So HR wants to make sure that no one who is unqualified takes up their manager's time. So if the answer is HR, it also means that the agency recruiter doesn't have a true connection to what the team wants. When I recruit for Mobiquity, like I'm working on these very bizarre systems architects roles. Why are they bizarre? Because what Mobiquity defines as a mobile systems architect is not what the market defines as a systems mobile architect. So I was sending the people who fit the title, who fit the general idea, and they were all getting rejected. So I called the hiring manager and I said, where am I not hitting it? Give me the specifics. And she told me the areas that made the difference, which helped me to do my recruiting. If I was dealing on the agency side with HR, it would be the agency calling Jeff Newman, who may or may not have time to get to the manager. It's an added layer, and the more layers you have in any conversation, it's like that old game of telephone. The more confusing it gets. Please.
What do you do when like you have a recruiter who like continually like every few months kind of contacts you, even though you're kind of just happy and content and told them that you're content?
Okay, that's an easy one, and it's something when I speak to a candidate like yourself who says, I'm not really looking right now. I will ask a question or two to get, there's always, first of all, it never hurts to dance. You don't have to go back to my apartment. I'm just asking you to dance. There's no commitment. You know what I'm saying? So what I would ask you is tell me what your perfect opportunity looks like. And then you would tell me, and it might be something crazy. I really want to work in Hawaii for $500,000 and testing new strains of marijuana. And I'm going to go, yeah, that's not going to happen. Tell me realistically what you would change. If you could change, I love my job. I love working at Mobiquity. I really do. There's still things I would change. You know, I'd love more money. Who wouldn't? I'd love to have a 4-day work week. Who wouldn't? No matter how much you love what you're doing, there's always something that could be better. So you say to the recruiter, listen, I love what I do, but if you could find me what I'm doing right now exactly the same, and it was $25,000 and I got a $15,000 sign-on bonus, yeah, I'd be interested. But unless you have that, don't waste my time. Feel free to check in and know that if you get something like this, I'm into it. Now, if I'm on the agency side and I got something that's 80% of what you wanted, I'm still going to call you. Why? Because it's your decision, not mine. The same way if I'm on the agency and I know the offer is shit, I know you're going to say no. I'm still going to call you and tell you because it's not my decision to make. This is your life. This isn't a game. And I feel on the agency side, because recruiters deal with so many people and have so much disappointment, they stop seeing the human beings and they only see the resume. They only see a skill set, a walking piece of paper and a commission check. That's not how I roll. I know a few other of my peers in the industry don't do that, but I know the recruiting industry, and they hire 22-year-olds, 21-year-olds who are just out of college who will take $20,000 to sit and make phone calls. Try to find people you trust. It's not easy, but they're out there. Okay. Oh, yes, please.
I had a bunch of questions about that.
Please.
But, so one of them is, I mean, I don't know, what if it's really hard to get across to the recruiter exactly what you want because maybe they don't have, like, a lot of technical knowledge of the thing, or it's really hard to describe what a quality company is?
Well, I think that's an issue that you have to work with, because that's not a recruiting issue. That's I don't know if it's a pie in the sky thing you're looking for that doesn't exist potentially in the real world, or you're not able to articulate what you want. One of the things about engineers is that it's sometimes difficult to articulate that exact specificity of what your ideals are. My advice would be to go to the company that you're interested in, or go to the job description that you're interested in, and rewrite it to make it perfect for what you're looking for. And then say, listen, and call the recruiter and say, I found this job on Indeed.com. I absolutely love it. I added a little bit to make it perfect for me. If this or something close to it comes across your desk, if I'm not your first call, I'll be disappointed because this is the job that's mine.
That's a good idea. Give me an example. The other thing I was going to ask is, I've gotten in a lot of situations where, say, like a recruiter sort of dropped the ball with like a thing, and now I can't talk to the company directly without them being involved or something.
Sure.
And then the company is resentful about paying the recruiter.
There's 2 or 3 issues with that. Agency recruiting, especially in the big cities, is exceptionally competitive. I feel aspects of it are even more competitive than the competition you see on Wall Street. There's a limited supply of candidates, there's a limited supply of talent like the people in this room, and it's limited. So we're all fighting over the same people. So I never look at a resume posted on the Monster board or posted on Dice or anything. I won't touch it because I know there's 80 other people who do what I do for a living who are all fighting over you. I'm going to call you from LinkedIn, but even better, I'm going to meet you at something like this and call you in 3 months when you tell me this is what I'd love, and we've already met, and I've already screened you to a limited extent. The reason they don't want you to call the managers is because if you do something stupid, it's going to reflect back on the agency. And all agency recruiters love their candidates, but they also fear them. And I could sit here for the next 17 sessions and tell you stories about things I've seen candidates do, and you go, really? Someone did that on an interview? You know, I had a candidate steal from a manager when the manager stepped out of the room, and the manager came back, and the guy was putting stuff from the manager's desk into his briefcase. I had to fire a gentleman for being drunk, this is a long time ago, on a mainframe operator. I don't even know if anyone knows what that is anymore. But you had to be 12 to midnight shift, and he was drunk, so we fired him, and at that time those people were very hard to find. So I said maybe his wife died, maybe something terrible happened and it was a one-time event. So I called him into my office and said, let's talk about it, and he came to my office drunk. I'm not saying you're going to do that, but I'm saying that's every agency recruiter's fear that something like that is going to happen. I had an interview at Citibank. The manager is a huge venture capitalist now, and the candidate and he, I don't remember the exact technical thing, but they got into a fight over something in JDK. And when I say got into a fight, they got into a fist fight, and the candidate had to be escorted out by security. I don't want that guy jumping into the process calling my manager, and that's the fear. They're all true stories. I wish they weren't, you know, but that's the fear. It's kind of like the fear of child kidnapping in the United States. You have the most insignificant amount of having a stranger kidnap your child in the United States. You could stand on your front lawn with a sign saying, kidnap my child, and the kid's not going to get kidnapped. But we've made it into such a thing, and there's enough examples of it that everyone's kind of scared of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? And it's not you. It's that guy who got into a fist fight 10 years ago with a manager I had.
Well, I mean, the other aspect of that is like, what if the company is resentful about the fact that you came into a recruiter and now they have to pay this guy when, you know, they could have made some other guy?
I was brought into Mobiquity because of my agency background to get rid of all the agencies. And they were paying $25,000, $30,000 fees to people like me, and I got in and ended that because now I'm doing it. So a company that's committed to that kind of hiring is probably going to have someone in-house like me to do it. I only use agencies if there's too much on my plate and only if there's someone I 100% trust and I have no other alternative. And I love all my agency brothers and sisters, I really do, but I won't use them if I don't have to.
Okay, I have one more question, which is
Of course.
every time I get called by a recruiter, the first thing they do is they spout out a whole bunch of numbers about like revenue and investment and stuff that I have no context for understanding what this even means.
Just let it fly over your head. They're trying to impress you that they really know the client. Just work on the job and do your own research. I'm going to get into that in a minute. So now, you sent in your resume. This is what I need. Impress me. Now, as I said, I know nothing about technology. Your pedigree got you through the first thing. This is my favorite movie, The Big Lebowski. So he's watching his ex-wife's dog, and the dude says to him, "How come you're watching her dog?" And he goes, "This isn't a regular dog, this is a show dog. This dog's got an effing pedigree." And that's what your resume is. Your resume is your pedigree. I cannot stress that enough. Something I counsel everyone I work with is every single job you send your pedigree into is different. Why would you send the same paperwork to every job? Never, ever lie. You will always get caught. Check that. Most of the time you'll get caught. But if the job says, we're looking for a Java coder, and your resume calls yourself a Java programmer, well then change programmer to coder. It's not a lie, but someone wrote that spec, and that's the language they're looking for. If your current job was half business analysis, half JavaScript, and you have business analyst on top and JavaScript as the second line, but the job's most important skill is JavaScript, move the line up top. Recruiter looks at a resume 10, 15 seconds before they make the decision to call. You want to make sure that the buzzwords, the hot things, are closer for them to see. To me, it's a matter of hoops. The whole interview process to getting a new job, to getting a new opportunity, is a system of hoops. Hoops 1, getting your resume recognized by the recruiter. Hoop 2, getting through me, human resources, who I cannot stress enough. I think I'm behind on my slides. Give me 1 second. I hope it's the right slide. I know nothing. You know nothing, Jon Snow, for us fans of Game of Thrones. I know nothing about technology. I know 2 things that I look for when I'm talking with you. Are you passionate about whatever your core skill set is? Do you love what you do? And are you a jerk? You and I, if I hire you, are going to spend more time together than I spend with my wife, than I spend with my family. So I don't care how good your skill set is. And this is much more corporate than agency. Agency, you're more of a product. When I'm hiring you in-house, I'm looking for someone to be part of my firm. I have equity. If you're not good at what you do, what's my equity worth? I am concerned about getting the right people. So I couldn't tell you if your Java is good or not. That's who your next interview, that's your next hoop. Your next hoop is going to be a technical person who would most likely be a peer who knows what they're doing. And then the final is going to be the person that that technical person reports to. Each step of this process is equally important because to get to the next hoop, you have to go through the first hoop. Understand though, the recruiter really, we know nothing. Sometimes the manager will give me a list of questions. Because it's the nature of how I roll, and not everyone will do this. I will say to you, my manager gave me a list of questions with the right answers. I'll probably mispronounce a technical term. I still don't know if it's GIF or GIF. Nobody knows, you know? It's one of those things. So just tell me, but know that I have a list of answers, and I'll say to you, well, the answer that the manager wrote is X. Does what you say, can you translate it into that? Because this isn't a world of exactness. If you just said the same thing but in a different way, tell me. I want to know, because it's just another one of the ways. I get it. For every role I post online, I get 75, 100 resumes, of which 50 are out of Eastern Europe, and I can't use them because I don't sponsor visas. Then I have 50 left, and I go through those. And it's a process to get to the 5, 6 people I interview. One thing I can tell you is I usually can tell if you're lying to me about having done or not having done something. Again, like I said in the beginning, it is not a binary world. It is not a yes or no. Jeff, you know, I've never done Python, but I've done Perl, which is very similar. I feel like I could ramp up to Python in a short amount of time. I'm willing to pay $1,000 to take a class if you give me the opportunity. And if you meet all of my other factors, I'm going to go to my manager and say, listen, Sheila does not have, she has 80% of what you wanted, but she has stuff that no one else had, most of all that intangible that will make her a fit at Mobiquity, the cultural fit, the drive, the passion. And that will, and won't always get you the job, but it might get you to the next hoop, your next round. So that goes again. Passion. You have to love what you do. When I interview salespeople, and are there any salespeople in here? Okay. When I interview salespeople, I always ask about compensation. Why do I ask about compensation? A good salesman or woman is going to be concerned about commission. They are not going to be concerned about a base. So when I say to a good salesperson, what are you expecting compensation-wise? If their answer is, I need $100,000 on the base, done. I'll close that interview in 3 minutes. A good salesperson will say to me, I'm not as concerned about the base as I am in having an uncapped commission and no territory limits. I don't want to have to not be able to do Southern California because someone else has to. I just need enough of a base to pay my bills until I ramp up my commission to the next level. That's the answer a salesperson should give. So I used to do a lot of work with Bloomberg. In New York, everyone knows Bloomberg. Bloomberg is a C++ Unix shop. They ate C++ Unix people. I don't know what they did with them, but they were hiring maybe 15 C++ Unix developers from me a month. And then every time someone started, they called me back because they hated it. Because Bloomberg knew that C++ Unix developers were the best C coders, and they needed C coders. So they were hiring C++ and making them do C. And I dropped them, that's a lie. I didn't drop them as a client. I was making a lot of money, but it was at a time in my career where I hadn't grown morally or professionally enough to know that it wasn't right. Yeah, you gotta be passionate about what you do, and you gotta say this is what you want to do. Questions? Anything?
Question.
Please.
What are the best practices to know the salary based on the opportunity?
So, I don't hire based on salary in the sense of I'll usually have a range.
How do I know that the maximum boundary?
From an agency recruiter is always trying to get as much money for you as they can while still making the placement. An agency recruiter is paid, not always, 90% of the time. Please take everything I say as, I don't deal in black and whites, I deal in gray, so know that all these things are gray. Every situation is unique. But the majority of the time, an agency recruiter is paid a fee based on a percentage of your base salary. So they're going to fight to get you as high as they can without being so high that the manager goes, I'm sorry, you're too expensive. How do you find out what your fair market value is? I have trouble doing that as a professional. What I do is my first starting point is I go to Indeed.com. They have a button where you can look up salary history, see what people with similar titles. But the world doesn't look like that. I am constantly hiring quality assurance analysts. So we all know there's a base level of pay for QA. But everybody I hire for QA has to have tested mobile applications. So that's like, I know the price of a pizza, but now I want a pizza with pepperoni and onions and pineapple. And it changes the whole equation. So I have bases that I use. I'll call people that I know, but there really isn't an answer. So we recently made an offer to a UI UX designer. And in my opinion, she was significantly underpaid. Women are terribly underpaid in the country as a whole, and this lady was even worse for what her skill set was. So we made an offer, even though I know that we could have made a much lower offer and she still would have accepted. I made an offer that was fair market value, because that's what's right. You have to just be careful. Again, not everybody is me, not everybody is Mobiquity. I don't believe in nickel and diming people. To me, that's BS. But agency recruiters especially will, because when they're dealing with HR usually has a structure. We're not going to pay over 13% of what the last person's salary was. And that's how it is.
I'm just curious, what is the typical response from a recruiter side when developers are messaged on LinkedIn? Like, is that still the primary?
I missed a little part, I'm sorry.
Is LinkedIn still the primary means of outreach for recruiters? And I'm just curious how that, you think that's going to stay that way, or like?
I do. I like LinkedIn. I'm waiting for the next thing to come about. I'm mature in my career. Most of my connections are through connections. They come from events like this where I meet 100 people. 1,000 people, and I'll make connections. And so I recently hired a QA director out of San Francisco, and I keep on going back to QA. I guess it's on my mind. That's my most pressing role. And we had an urgent need come up, and I went to him and I said, Amar, is there anyone you can recommend for this role? And it wasn't in his group, it was in a different group. He gave me 3 names, we hired one of them. But when you're talking with a 25-year-old agency recruiter, they're going to put in some keywords and they're going to mass mail, and that's how it's going. So Mobiquity has an event, and you can look it up on Eventbrite. You're all invited to attend. Just a little meet and greet, tacos, beer, going on next Tuesday night. So I know that my 3 most urgent needs in the San Francisco office right now are mobile systems architects, lead level iOS developers, and visual designers with UI UX. So I mass mailed, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 people within those 3 skill sets. But I said in my email, I apologize for the mass email. Know that it's mass. You got to be upfront about those, because if I'm willing to lie about something so minor, what else am I going to bullshit you on? You don't want to be caught in that trap. So the answer is, in terms of a recruiter level, there are recruiters who will use the job boards, Monster Board, etc. There are recruiters who will use LinkedIn. There are recruiters who will use their connections. The really good people will use a combination of the 3. Like, I'll go to LinkedIn if I get something really unusual where I have no connections. That's my first place, but I never go to the job boards. Does that answer it?
Yeah, totally.
Cool. And the more recruiters you connect to on LinkedIn, the more people are going to call you and hassle you. But I believe it with all my heart. It never, ever hurts to dance, as long as you're honest with the recruiter, which is what we were talking about before. If you say to her, if you get me this, call me. That's how you handle it. And if they waste your time, you tell them, and then you block them. Don't take their calls. Download Umail if you have Android or iOS. It's great. You can block numbers and have them think your phone is disconnected. So another thing I look for is EQ versus IQ. So we've, in the United States, in the world, have decided that IQ is the best measurement of someone's intelligence. Absolutely important measurement of inductive, deductive thought. But in the last 20 years, there's been a movement about something called EQ, your emotional quotient. And that's what I interview for when I'm talking with you. You're obviously bright. You graduated from Stanford. You've been coding with Apple for 7 years. You had your own company for 3 years. It didn't work out. These things happen. Now you're looking again. I know you're solid. I know your skill set is solid. But are you going to have a temper tantrum if you don't get your way in the office? You're an entrepreneur. Whenever I take someone who was coming from being their own boss to working at a company that I'm working with, my first question is, how are you going to handle taking direction from others, since you've only been following what you've done for the last 3 years? So the answer I'm looking for The best answer you can get for that, I didn't follow what I was doing for 3 years. I did what my clients told me to do. They were my boss. That's the answer. Because it shows you can take direction. It shows you can handle things that don't necessarily agree with what you do. Definitely, I would recommend any book on emotional quotient. They're all great, but it means knowing when not to cry when you don't get your way. How do you work well with others? Someone a month ago ate my lunch out of the fridge. If I could find who that was, and I work in Regis, so it's like a shared space, but that, you don't eat someone else's lunch. I can't teach you that. You learn that in kindergarten, man. And if your EQ is so low that you're gonna eat someone, it had my name on it, you know what I mean? It's not something I'm gonna ask, but it's something I'm gonna intuit on the interview. So about 6 months ago, I started a Mobiquity about 6 months ago. And I jumped into the middle of a process of an Android high-level architect. Belle of the ball. Everyone knows how much Android architects are getting paid at the top of the game. The guy was about 25, 26 for what it's worth, and we were looking to pay him $160,000. And I met with him, and I thought he was a sack full of assholes. Is that too rude? I apologize. But he was not, that's what he was. He was not a nice man. He was rude to me. He said rude things. He was just rude. And I called my boss and I said, I know we're preparing an offer for this guy, and I'm sure his skill set is excellent because we hardcore teched him out. And I know I'm jumping into the process in the middle, but I cannot strongly recommend enough that we're going to keep looking because we're going to have internal problems with this guy, assuming he stays for more than 6 months and doesn't quit for something better, because he had no emotional intelligence. Brilliant man. Would never say he wasn't brilliant. Couldn't work with people. And when you work in an office, you have to work with your peers. You have to work with others. Lone guns do not make it. So, another thing that is really going to shut me down when we talk is any talk about what's in it for me. Every company, especially in San Francisco, and I'm out of a New York environment, so to me the benefits and bonuses and extras offered on the West Coast blew my mind. But they're all kind of the same. Yeah, Google has a little bit better than some of the other startups. I know our 401k matching at Mobiquity isn't as great as other companies out there, but I know we give more options than other places. But if you're asking me that on our first phone call, you're out. Because I want to give you everything. I want you to be happy at your new role. But if you're all concerned about what's in it for me from a monetary standpoint, from how many vacation days, I'll promise you'll find out. I'm not going to waste your time. Don't ask about it. Not on the first call. Call me after the second technical interview and be like, listen, I didn't want to bring it up, but right now I get 25 vacation days and I visit my mom for a month every year in Hong Kong. I cannot give that up, so if the company gives less than 25 vacation days, it's not a greedy thing, I just can't do it. I have a personal commitment. That is a lot better than having, oh, so how much of your bonus did you get paid on the first call? It's an immediate red flag for me. What's in it for me? Tell me about what you can bring to Mobiquity. Tell me about where your passion is, why Mobiquity interests you. That is always my next question when I'm talking with you. Why are you looking? I'm unemployed. Always a great answer. How come you haven't found anything? How long have you been looking? Have you been sitting on your couch smoking dope, rewatching Star Wars, or did you decide to take a class to keep your skills current? It shows who you are, man. I know nothing about technology. I'll keep on saying it. I don't interview for your technology. To get past me to the people who really know what they're talking about, this is what you need to show me. Impress me with that. Impress me with your attitude. I hired an Android mid-level developer about 3 months ago in New York. 10 years at Northrop Grumman as an embedded C developer. Now, again, I'm not a techie, but an embedded C is one of the most intricate, most difficult of the coding languages. And a company like Northrop Grumman, where you're making atomic weapons and airplanes, you know how intense that code is. But this guy loved Android, and he had been running a little Android shop at the time. He had a few apps with about 20,000 downloads, and he wasn't our usual hire. But I was so impressed by anyone who put in a 50-hour-plus week at Northrop Grumman and then came home to do Android code that I sent him to get teched out. And the tech came back and said, this guy's got potential. And we hired him. And I didn't hire him because of his Android skills. Today, I hired him because his passion for the product was going to make this guy just an incredible resource for Mobiquity in a year, in 2 years, not just tomorrow. So this is a goofy one, and as you can tell, look at my hair, look at my dress. I'm wearing this pair of Skechers with holes in it. I went to buy a new pair of shoes, and the guy wanted $160 for New Balance, and I said, well, I really want to wear nice shoes to my presentation, but F that. When I say presentation, I don't mean your hair. I don't just mean your hair. But an interview is a first date. You want to spruce it up a little. I'm not expecting a suit and a tie. Dude, I moved to California, so I never have to. I had about 15 suits, polo, Joseph Abboud, and when we moved here, I gave them all to charity. And my wife said, I can't believe you're giving those suits away. I said, I kept a black for funerals, a brown for weddings, and a blue for bar mitzvahs. Other than that, I'm not putting on a suit. That's it, I'm done. And she said, okay, I'm not expecting you to wear a suit. I am expecting you not to wear shorts and sandals. I am expecting you to have a shirt with a collar. I'm not expecting a tuxedo, but I am expecting that we're going on a date. So pretty yourself up to talk with me. It shows pride in yourself. I'm not going to throw you out because you have an eyebrow ring, though I might if you had a facial tattoo. We are a services company. But it's that basic idea of it's something special and you want to impress me. And I'm not saying, I didn't shave this morning, I'm not saying that I'm the hardest core guy. I'm a hippie, that's who I am, that comes through in everything I do. But I do want to show you made an effort, something. And if you can't, if you show up every day because your office is sandals and shorts, and you know that if you came in pants, they're going to be like, oh, where are you interviewing? Tell me. That's it. Then we're done. Then come naked. I don't care as long as you let me know that's what's going to happen. You know? I have to come naked because I coded a nudist colony and they would feel suspicious if I had underwear on. Okay, now I know, you know? But it's how you hold yourself. It's what you're all about as much, and it says, you know, I respect your time, man. I'm not going to not hire you. I like quirky people. I am eccentric and quirky. I like it in others. I'm not going to judge you on that. It's more than that. I hope I'm articulating it well. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Okay, very cool. Another thing to get you past me, look up Mobiquity. Look me up. Jeff, I saw you went to Columbia University. I went to Yale, so I won't hold Columbia against you. Just know Yale's better. Make me laugh with something like that. Look at my background. Look up Mobiquity. Say, oh, I saw Andrew Heiser is on your board of directors. His UX work is awesome. I go, man, Sean is very interested in my company. I like that he went out of his way to look up what we're all about. Bill Siebel, our CEO, was interviewed in Forbes last month. Anybody who brings that up to me on an interview, that's an automatic plus. It shows you care enough about the company and the opportunity. I don't want someone who is looking for a job. I want someone who is looking for a home, for an opportunity, not a paycheck. Which isn't to say I'm not going to try to get you a good paycheck. We all know how important that is. But it's I write a monthly column for a thing called The Undercover Recruiter. And my article for 2 or 3 months ago was called How Big is Your Opportunity Pie? Because when you take a new opportunity, you have to measure everything. It's not just what the title is, what the company is, where it is. It's all of those things. And you have to say, this slice of pie has a lot more chocolate than that piece of crap coconut slice, and that's why it's more important to me, so it weighs heavier in my decision-making process. But for me, getting through me, showing knowledge of me or the company shows you're interested. I never personally go on an interview without having a whole notebook filled about what everyone I'm meeting with does, because it makes those connections. Those connections are what land people jobs. Yesterday we were recruiting you, today you're a member. Your expectations need to be in line with reality. It's the Bloomberg example I gave you. They all thought they were getting the hottest end of C++ Unix, and they ended up developing C. Do your research, know your company, dig around. I think Glassdoor is bullshit because things change so fast. I don't recommend it. But it's not terrible. See who you knew who worked there. Ask around and make sure your expectations of what you're getting meet the reality of what you're getting, or else you're going to end up disappointed.
Question?
Yes?
Do you recommend relying on Glassdoor?
Absolutely not. Glassdoor is filled with angry people who have a grudge to pay. During the .com days, there was a website whose title was F'd Company. It was literally fuckedcompany.com. And I used to go on there, see who was complaining, and go recruit out of those companies. Glassdoor is very similar. But I'll tell you, Mobiquity has a Glassdoor problem. But if you look at it, all the reviews are 8 months or older. Well, why is that? Well, the head of human resources is 8 months in the role. My boss, Martin, is 7 months in the role, hired by Susan. I'm 6 months in my role, hired by Martin. You ask any of the people the three of us brought into Mobiquity, they're going to be the opposite of those Glassdoor reviews. Cultures, corporations change. You have to work with people you know. Another question I like, and I don't just use it on interviews. We went apartment hunting when we moved here. And I said, okay, we're very interested. Tell me the one thing you know that you don't want to tell me about why I don't want to rent this apartment. Say to your recruiter, tell me if you could change one thing about where you work, what would you change? And if you listen to their answer, you'll know how truthful they're being. You'll know the reality of that. You can't just rely on one source. You have to go to multiple sources. Common complaint that we hear all the time, and I've heard it from recruiters who don't get called back by their candidates and candidates who don't get called back by their recruiters. We're often the most important things on each other's desks, but not on the hiring manager's desks. I can't tell you, I know agency recruiters never, ever call back. And it goes back to the beginning of our discussion. Once you didn't get the job, they don't have the time to care about you, because if they don't find the right person, they're going to be fired. I've been fired like that. I've seen it happen. I've fired people for not production. They've already moved on to the next person. It's not personal. You can't take it on personal. I do my best to call everybody back, but I'm not perfect either. And I won't call you back if you screwed up terribly and embarrass me in some such way. It doesn't really happen, except, you know, like some of the choices I just gave you. But that is a common felt frustration, and know that I feel it, man, and I understand that. But I think that might be the #1 frustration of people working with recruiters, is that they don't get called back.
Question.
That is the end. So please, questions, I'll take them all.
Will recruiter really know the reasons of rejection? If so, can you really know the reasons?
60 to 70% of the time. And if you had, when I was on the agency side, I used to always prepare you for interviews. I would, I talked about my linear example, no yes or no's. Yes, here's an example, no, but this is what different. I've written tons of guides about it. There's plenty of places to go. But if you put your feet on the desk when you were interviewing with the manager, it has happened to me more than 3 or 4 times. There's nothing I'm going to tell you that's going to help you in your job search. Please.
About the point of what's in it for me and waiting until the second or third date to bring up a deal breaker, why?
You don't want to appear to me like the only thing you're concerned about is the benefits. If it's that important to you, you bring it up in a non-confrontational way. What do I mean by that? You don't ask directly. We have a saying in the recruiting business, if you ask for referrals, you get advice, and if you ask for advice, you get referrals. So how does it relate here? Instead of saying, how many vacation days do you have? Say, my current company gives me unlimited vacation. We have one of those policies where nobody's checking on anything. Could I expect something similar? You don't say, how many vacation? You may not even have to add, say, one of the benefits I love about where I'm working now is this, this, and this, and then shut up. If the recruiter's good, they'll say, listen, the company is offering 5 less vacation days, but the bonuses are 25% and they're based on your performance, not company performance. So you'll probably do better since you're coming out of AIG and nobody got bonuses. But don't do it in gimme way. Big turnoff.
In the initial talk with the HR person, they asked you how much money you're looking for. On salary.com, they recommended that you kind of field the question by saying, well, I'm sure your company gives fair compensation. Let's wait until we get further along.
The answer I like is close to that. It's not exact. The answer I like is, and I give it, and I like to hear it. We all know money's important. I'm making $110,000 now. For the right opportunity, I am flexible, but what I'm most concerned about is finding the right opportunity. If it's the right place to be, all of that will work out. And you have to trust in your recruiter to do that. It depends on who you're working with. Hopefully it's someone you know and trust.
What if they push it, or they say, well, what if you work?
If you push it, then you answer. There's a reason. Usually the reason is they had 3 people interview who got shut out because they were too much money, or they sent in someone who was too inexpensive and they didn't have the skills that paid the bills. There's usually a reason. I would have to know each specific example, but I hate when you won't tell me. The reason sometimes as a recruiter that I push on it is because I can't tell from your skill level and our discussion what you should be at. I've been doing this long enough that I kind of have a general sense of what different qualities make where. But if I have, I spent, when you came in and we saw each other, we met at Unqt last week, and I was on the phone talking to a candidate. It was for a mid-level quality assurance manual testing position. I spent 25 minutes with the candidate because he was a referral, and you always, as a recruiter, you always give extra attention to your referrals, even if they look terrible on paper, because you want your people to keep on giving them, so you treat everyone well. It's just general sense to treat everyone well, but that's neither here nor there. And we get to the end of the call, and I said, what kind of salary are you looking for? And he said, $147,000. So the guy who referred him to me, who's the manager of the department, doesn't make that much money. And I said, well, thank you for being upfront. So if in this situation, let's say it was the same thing, and you said, I'm not ready to talk about this in this point in the conversation, I may have liked you enough to set you up for the next round. And then you go, man, I am interested. And I go, shit, well, I can only pay you 85 grand. And you go, well, I gave you 3 hours plus of my time. If you knew the role only paid that, you got to feel it out. It's one of those gray areas. You got to roll through it. I will tell you this. This is not just in finding your next opportunity. This is any monetary negotiation you have in life. Whoever gives the number first loses. Always go back with another question. Never, if you can avoid it, give the number first. What are you looking for? What are you paying? What are you looking for? What are you paying? Just somebody's gonna give. Somebody's gonna give.
So we know the company use scanner to scan resumes. How do you balance putting the alphabet soup of technologies on the resume so make sure the register gets scanned versus...
So interesting, and it actually came up on Reddit. I'm in some sort of subreddit about recruiting, and it came up on Reddit, that exact question, and I answered, you know,
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
essentially, how do you know when your ATS is parsing resumes that they're doing it the correct way? Does that about sum it up?
Well, sometimes you just want to list everything because you don't want the scanner miss it. But a lot of times we put it there.
It depends where you're looking, what you're looking for. If you're doing a targeted job search, it shouldn't make a difference. If you are posting your resume out there because you are so hungry for a job and you want every recruiter to see it, that's another story. And I cannot stress not to do that. I know I won't work with you. I caught someone, they used, I don't know what you call it, where you, it's not a font, but where you make the color of the text a different color, and they made the color of the text and listed an SEO worth of every skill set under the sun in tiny script at the bottom of their resume. So this guy came up on every single search you did because every single keyword was on there, but he hid it at the bottom of the resume in a color that was the same white as the paper. You're not going to find something, you're not going to find an opportunity. You may get a job, but you're not going to find an opportunity doing tricksy games like that. Don't lie. Don't put that, you know, I once read a book on systems development, so you put systems development on there. I'm going to catch you. And even if you were perfect from the role, the fact that you tricked me like that, you're out. That's, you know, I hate saying it like that, but it's the honest answer. Please, please.
Have you seen any trends that motivate passive candidates to leave? So, like, is there anything in common between passive candidates and...
Absolutely not. It always goes back to every passive candidate I speak to. I've said it a whole bunch of times today. It never hurts to dance. You don't have to go up and see my etchings, if you will. We don't have to go that far. But if we don't dance, how do you know you don't want to? You are at the bar, and there's a woman there, and she is, shall we say, unattractive? And I mean unattractive, and she buys you a drink. You still won. It's still okay. You don't have to go home with her. So then she asks you to dance, and you dance. And you find out that you and her are more compatible than you could ever imagine. That the physical unattractiveness of this person is so insignificant to how well you guys mesh that you said, holy shit, I just met my soulmate. Thank God we danced. Don't reject because of something. If you don't dance, you will never, ever know. Which isn't to say go on everything, do everything. I'm saying be open to the possibility. And I don't mean that just for jobs. I think it's good hippie life advice, but that's, I think you can tell that's my style. You know, if you don't get it right the first time, try twice unless it really hurts, you know, and that's just roll like that. You'll be happier. I don't know if that answers your question. It's not a trend. I think everyone is a passive candidate.
After that, so if I'm asked, like, why are you looking to move? So is it okay to say that I'm happy where I am, but I still want to just see the...
You can say you're unhappy, but never badmouth. You say, my boss has unrealistic expectations. You don't say, my boss is a dick. You phrase, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But when I ask you, why are you looking? I want to hear, I am not challenged enough. I want exposure to this. I'm working at a product company. Mobiquity is a services company. I don't have that experience. I want to learn it. I heard that your Boston mobile app everyone's talking about it as the preeminent example of responsive design. That turned me on, man. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to hear your RFLs for. Because the truth is, I'm going to find out everything if I do my job right anyway. If I hear your salary and you're $40,000 less than industry average, you may want new challenges, but you also want the $40,000. And there's nothing to be ashamed of with that, but you don't lead with that. We're dating, you don't tell me when you take Ambien, you struggle out to the highway naked at 4 in the morning. You save that for like the 5th date, you know what I mean? But you don't lead with it. Yes, please, and I apologize, I took people before you, it wasn't fair.
So you mentioned doing an extensive research on a company. But from my experience, it really depends like on the department you work for or a person you work for. It can be like such a significant difference. So what's the value in doing such an extensive research if it's gonna...
Even though it doesn't make, even though there are departments or people that won't make a difference to, if it does, be prepared. Be prepared. Just, I'm not that British gentleman who takes an umbrella thinking that every day there's going to be rain, but he never gets rained on. You know, it's not perfection, but it never hurts. And more important than what you learn about doing the research, which you may learn things that you really want to work there or you don't want to work there, it shows interest. And I'm more concerned that you're interested than whether your facts are right. Yes. The young lady, and then you, please.
Okay. What female-specific advice you can give?
I have such a terrible, terrible problem with diversity right now in our Mobiquity office. I have, and it's very important to me personally and professionally. I think the best ideas come out of diversity. But I'll never hire someone because they're X. But I'll go to some place knowing where a whole bunch of people with the same skill set hang out who are all African American or all women or all whatever to find the right person. I don't think there's any specific or different advice you need as a woman. The problem I think that you'll have to confront is not only the tech bro culture, which is disgusting and terrible, but you also have to have an unspoken and often unconscious bias that women are not as good at technology as men. And it's something that is going to be a constant struggle and challenge to you, as terrible as it is to say, I think, for a while until the country itself changes. There's no advice I can give you. The only advice I would give, and it's not just to you, it's to everyone, be yourself. I hid who I was for a long time doing Wall Street recruiting, and I wasn't happy. I was miserable. And my career personally picked off when I said, I survived September 11th. And when I came out, I said, I can't be this asshole anymore. I don't like him. He's not me. And I started just being me, and my career just exploded after that. That's the only advice I can give. You will find the right home, but there's nothing specific you need to change or do different because you're a diverse person. You're a woman. There's nothing to change. There's no, I'm sorry. I wish there was. I really wish there was.
So how can you decide like how good a recruiter is and like which ones you should work with more? And like, I mean, there are some recruiting agencies where they ask you to come out to their office and like say hi and stuff.
We talked about how recruiters are often fired for nothing. One of the ways recruiters are often judged is how many phone calls they make and how many people they bring in. There's no way around it. You'll never know when something's real or something's not real. The way you find the best recruiters is ask your peers who they like. Look up. I feel that true professionals, no matter what your skill set is, are always interested in growing professionally. So if you go to something like ERE.net, that's a recruiter's message board, the people who are cool enough isn't the right word, the people who are involved enough to be active in something like that, they care about what they do. They're more professional. It's not a science. You'll find the people you like and trust their advice, and that's the best I can give you. And I'm always open. Please, anybody has a career question, email me. I can't promise to be an immediate response, but I'll try. Yes?
Can I ask for the managers?
The gentleman behind you and then you, of course.
So when I look for a new job, besides opportunity, I also like I want a 20% raise, on the benefit, the salary. So how will I approach that?
It's an unrealistic expectation, and I'd shut you down. No one in this economy. Look what we did to the BART strikers, and what did they want? 12%? And tell me everyone in the city was mocking them. Average raise in this industry is 3%. So you look at me and you say, Jeff, I'm 20% underpaid from what I'm doing now. I'm not asking for a 20% raise. I'm asking for my fair market value. It depends. That's how I would approach it. But if you're at your fair market value and you want 20% more than you're having, it's not going to happen.
So you say it's, what's the rate? 10%?
I think 3 to 5% is about average and fair. I will always try to pay someone fair market value. Doesn't mean I can. But if I feel that what my company has is the range isn't fair in market value, I'll go back and say, you're not going to get the quality of candidates you want at that salary price. But if you come and tell me I'm not moving unless I have 20%, fine, I'll find someone else. That's what I get paid for. It's harsh. I hate to be an asshole like that, but I promised I'm only going to give the truth in here. I only give the truth. That's the reality. That's a big negative for me. It goes back to my slide. What's in it for me? Are you going to work 20% harder? It's not. It wouldn't be fair for me to ask that of you, right? Do you deserve a raise? Of course you do. We all do. I might be the only guy in the city who actually supported the BART strike workers because I believe that, as a country, we underpay everyone. They may have wanted more than everyone else in the country. Didn't mean what they wanted was wrong, I'd love to, but it's not how the world works, man. I wish you luck. I hope you do find it.
So, I'm learning new skills, so, that's up the value because, the current company I'm working on don't use those, but, when I go to...
So it's a skill you haven't used professionally? Not interested. And no, this isn't a personal thing. Everyone knows I'm not sticking it to this gentleman personally. It's how a recruiter would ask. Personally, I'm interested. You can show me the passion, show me that you did it, say, but I've never done it professionally, but look at my GitHub, man. Have your techies review my GitHub. That interests me. The average recruiter, so? I don't care, you didn't do it professionally. Not interested. I used to have great people for Wall Street companies, no financial services experience, they're out. He's developing a welcome program in Java. He doesn't need to know about foreign exchange. No, it doesn't matter. That's how the rules work sometimes. I'd love to get you 20% raises if I could, but not if you ask for it. Because it means you're going to be a difficult person to manage through the whole process. And I don't have time for that.
Can I ask for the manager's name that I'm going to work for?
Depends at what stage of the process we're in. An agency recruiter may say, I don't know. An agency recruiter may say, I can't tell you. The reason they can't tell you is because recruiting agency side is so competitive. Recruiters are trained to ask, oh, where else are you interviewing? Oh, you're interviewing at Google. Did you talk to Jeff Newman? No, I talked to Phil Peresky. He wrote it down, and then he went and called. So we're trained never to give more information than we have to. I'll tell you an hour before you're meeting them, if that's what it has to be. That's, again, not how I roll. That's how the industry does it. I usually send you a LinkedIn profile link, so you can look them up. When I don't do that now, but when I was agency, that's what I would do. Because my people were my people. Yes?
It seems like it's would be a lot more ideal to not deal with agency recruiters and approach companies directly. How would you characterize a candidate, like when it's a good idea to be talking to?
There's no hard and fast rule on it. Yeah. Good question to ask the agency recruiter, is this role exclusive to you? 98% of the time the answer is going to be no. If it is exclusive, then that's a better thing than I would work with the recruiter. If you say, how many placements have you made at X company in the past? That's an indication of the relationship. The reason you work with an agency recruiter is because they'll often have access to stuff that's either not posted or the manager is very difficult to reach. So when I was on the agency side, you can work, they call it sides of the desk. There's the recruiting side and the sales side. Some companies you do one, some companies you do both. When I did the sales side, all my hiring managers were ex-candidates of mine. They were people that I had helped so well during the process, now they needed to hire a subordinate. They picked up the phone and called me and said, you did so well by me, if you can fill these 2 roles in a week, I'm not going to give it to anybody else. And that's why you wanted to know me, because that's how I roll. But that's more the exception than the rule.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question. It's a hit or miss, man.
Seems like it's generally, if you can avoid it, good to avoid it, unless you know there's like some magic really good recruiter.
I think that in a world of infinite possibilities, if you're looking that hard, if your reason for being unhappy is that strong where you are, or you're 2 checks away from getting evicted, then use everybody, because you never know which one's going to be the one that hits. If you are a true passive candidate, happy but could be happier, then be more exclusive. But don't turn down someone because they're agency, just be careful.
Do recruiting agencies deal almost only with big companies that have a lot of money?
No, but it's more likely because those are the ones who can pay the fees.
Right.
Usually an agency recruiter will get 20 to 25% of the base salary, and if it's a role the company is having exceptional difficulty filling, they'll often up to 30 or 35%. So when you're talking $150,000 on a base, that's a lot of money. Yes,
all right. So let's say I really like the opportunity, but I don't want to leave money on table. How do I know that during salary negotiation I have pushed the limit? And I don't want to go back to it.
Have to balance. I recommend doing what I call a Ben Franklin. I don't know why it's called the Ben Franklin, it's always what it's been called. I've also heard it called the T-squared. Put a line down the middle. Company A, company B. Everything and everything, and then compare it. If we're talking you're leaving $5,000 in vested options that you're going to have to walk away from, you have to measure it against everything else. Don't take or leave a job because of one thing. You do it because of the whole picture. And you have to weigh, it's not a question I can answer for you. Like personally, I don't give a shit about titles. Call me anything you want. I want to be in an environment where I'm having fun. Call me, whatever you want to call me, as long as my check isn't where I need it to be. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, the people are good, the work is good. Other people, they'll turn down a job because the title isn't what they want. You have to measure in your own brain. It's not a question as a staffing expert I can answer for you. There's no right or wrong to it. It's what you think. Anything more? Yes.
Some certain positions, they kind of have an age associated with them. Just for example, like you cannot, be 20 and go to an architect. For like, I've been in situations where you cannot get this position not because of your skill set, but because if we put you in this position, the department is gonna you're gonna lead. There's gonna be a tension because you're like much younger, for example, right? How do you deal with that? Or even for like when applying for positions that
I wouldn't work for a company who was looking at those things. I'll often advertise for a senior Android developer or a senior iOS developer. And I'll get someone who spent 10 years doing visual work, Visual Studio, Visual Basic or something like that, and 3 years doing, and 6 months doing iOS, and they're senior because of all the background. But I'll have someone who's 26 but spent 6 years doing iOS. So who's more senior? You and I both know who's the better iOS developer, the person doing it for 6 years. It's just, What Mobiquity does is we do a lot of things with scalability and very large downloads. Most of our apps have over 1 million, 2 million, 3 million downloads. So I'll speak to amazing, amazing iOS developers who have, their biggest app has 50,000 downloads. They've never done the scalability that Mobiquity needs, but they're unbelievable developers, and I'll explain it. I go, but I am fantastic. And I go, you may be the best race car driver in the world, but I'm asking you to drive an 18-wheeler. Do I think you can drive it? Dude, you're the best race car driver in the world. Of course you can drive the 18-wheeler. Do I think you can step out of the front seat of the Maserati and get right into the 18-wheeler with no training, with not a little bit of extra something? No, of course you can't. I don't care how good a driver you are. They're different machines. So I don't know if that answers your question, but any company, any HR department that looks at age and a factor in hiring something, that's not a place I want to do business with. Because they'll look at other things. That may be one thing on the table. You know what does that, you know? If they're looking at that, what else are they looking at? I wouldn't want to work there.
Yeah. I just random question. You seem to have a lot of deal breaker things that you're describing.
Nothing is hard and fast. When I say a deal breaker, to me it's a red flag.
One thing that frustrates me is that they constantly ask me for like Word documents.
How so? Nobody minds if I vape. I e-cigarette and I need my nicotine. No?
I don't know. This is just a nitpicking point. I mean, that people keep asking me for documents. Like, am I
Okay, so that, I'll explain that. That's easy. When I send you to a client, I don't want anyone having your information but me. I don't want, because I've been screwed like this. Again, it goes back to what I told you about why we're so careful. You know, my guy who got into a fight. It's the exception, not the rule, but we're still careful. So companies will keep the resume and call you in a year and then not pay me my money. And when it's all about money, which is agency recruiting is all, that's what it's about. You do everything to protect yourself. So when I was agency, I insisted on everything in Word until I found a PDF to Word converter. Because I write 100 resumes a week and you write one. So I can do things to your resume when I have it in Word format to get you through the hoop. And that's why they want it. And a lot of times they'll add shit to it, which I don't agree with. So it's a combination of fixing it to look a certain way in a certain format. And sometimes HR managers are weird. I'm the exception. But I've heard of HR managers who will only look at resumes if they're in a certain type font, if they're only on this color. I don't care. That's me. But, you know, the agency recruiter wants to make his commission. She wants the deal to close. That's what she's looking for. I hope I wasn't too harsh. I love my agency recruiter sister and brothers. I really do. I understand their pain, though, you know, and this is the honesty of it.
So I guess maybe that explains why, like, I often go into a job interview and they have a paper in front of them. I'm like, what's that? And it's like, oh, it's a resume.
Right.
That doesn't look anything like.
And that's it. Do you have a funky resume or a standard format resume?
I give it an HTML.
Okay. I would have converted it too on the agency side. That's what we do. It's just part of the whole process, man. I don't know why. It's just, that's how it's done. Well, thank you very much. Anybody who would like my business card? Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time.